You will see that this patient has evidence of a previous cholesteatoma, so do stay tuned. So what I'm trying to do now is remove the skin out of this retraction, and we're just going to be careful because the patient has got a very thin eardrum as well. It's a hyperflaccid eardrum, so it vibrates more than usual, and it's like peeling away an onion. You've got different layers here, and you can see I've got that thick layer there at the back, and I'm just gently just working it out, the retraction. So why is this patient's eardrum retracted? Behind the eardrum, we have got the middle ear, and the middle ear cavity should be air-filled, and the air pressure in the middle ear should be equal and at equilibrium with the air pressure in the ear canal, so the external atmosphere. And what regulates the air pressure behind the eardrum is a narrow tube, a narrow orifice called the eustachian tube, which connects to the back of the nose. And at the back of the nose, where it adjoins to the back of the nose, the nasopharynx, the eustachian tube is typically shut. And it's shut because it then helps to prevent upper respiratory tract infections travelling up the eustachian tube and infecting the middle ear. And it also prevents you from hearing your internal sounds. If that eustachian tube is permanently open, every time you breathe or talk or eat, these sounds will travel up your nose, up the eustachian tube, and vibrate the inside of the eardrum, so we can still hear it. Sounds don't need to vibrate the outer part of the eardrum in order for us to hear it. It can vibrate the inside of the eardrum also. And these sound waves are then transmitted through the ossicles, the three bones, to the cochlea, the organ of hearing, where tiny microscopic sensory hair cells then shear side to side. They produce an electrical signal which is sent to the brain, and we perceive that sound. So the eustachian tube is closed for a reason. However, during brief moments of when we yawn, swallow, or chew during the course of the day, and it's completely involuntary, the eustachian tube, the muscles either side where it joins to the back of the nose and nasopharynx, they contract, which causes the eustachian tube to momentarily open. And during those brief moments they open, the air pressure can equalize, and any fluid that may have accumulated behind the eardrum, because as I mentioned, the middle ear is lined with a mucosa membrane, which is secretory. This fluid can drain out of the middle ear via the eustachian tube to the back of the nose, and then either through your mouth or down your throat, and you may swallow it. So if that eustachian tube doesn't open involuntarily, and every time you yawn, swallow, or chew, then there's no more air in the middle ear, and any remaining air in the middle ear gets absorbed by the cells in the middle ear. And once the remaining air is completely absorbed by the cells that line the middle ear, it creates a vacuum, and when it creates a vacuum, you get a suction effect, a cupping effect, and the eardrum gets sucked inwards. It's like when you're on a plane, when you're descending, or if you're scuba diving, the air pressure in the ear canal is greater than the air pressure behind the eardrum, which forces the eardrum inwards. It buckles inwards. And if it doesn't resolve, then you get a build-up of fluid as well, and that fluid can then get infected because that fluid can't drain, so it builds up behind the middle ear. It's like a water balloon. If you put too much water into the water balloon, eventually it'll pop. And similarly in the middle ear, if you have too much fluid build-up, it can cause the eardrum to inflate, and eventually, if it doesn't drain, it can burst through the eardrum, causing a perforation. We call that glue ear. So this patient has a history of eustachian tube dysfunction. Eustachian tube is blocked. The right is far more worse.